At a bustling summer festival, a poor black girl quietly works hard behind a drink stand. Suddenly she spots a filthy white boy collapsed on the sidewalk, ignored by the crowd passing by. Without hesitation, she rushes to bring him into her booth, caring for him and protecting him from dangerous men, even knowing it could cost her the only job she has. What she doesn't know is that this one brave act will change her life forever, in a way she never imagined. Before we dive in this story, let us know where you're watching from. We love to hear your thought. The sun was high and merciless, draping the streets of Oak Ridge in a syrupy heat that clung to the skin. Laughter rippled through the summer air, mingling with the sizzle of food trucks and the chime of music drifting from every corner of the neighborhood fair. Flags fluttered, children dashed between booths with sticky fingers and snow cones, and parents clutched plastic cups of lemonade, wiping sweat from their brows. It was the annual Summer Jubilee, a celebration of community, color, and heat, and it was in full swing. At the edge of it all, tucked beneath a canvas canopy faded by too many seasons, stood a girl in a plain blue t-shirt, her apron stained with splashes of fruit syrup and ice melt. Her name was Tiana Brooks, 19 years old, with deep brown eyes that watched the world with more caution than wonder. She stood behind the drink stand labeled Sunsip Naturals, handing out strawberry iced teas and peach lemonades with practiced efficiency. Her smile was polite, never wide, her posture upright but never relaxed. She was good at her job, not because she loved it, because she couldn't afford not to be. Tiana had dreams, but they didn't live here. Not in this pop-up booth beside the popcorn cart and the inflatable bounce house. They lived in brochures folded beneath her mattress, in the pages of college applications she couldn't afford to send. She had 1 semester of community college under her belt, 2 jobs, and a mother working night shifts to keep the lights on, and so, here she was, in the sticky heat of July, working the festival instead of attending it. 3 teas and a mango cooler, her manager barked from behind a stack of crates. Got it, she replied, voice steady. She poured, wiped the counter, smiled at a couple asking if the drinks were organic, and handed them their change. Her arms moved like clockwork, her mind already rehearsing the next step, the next hour, the next shift. It was then, between a blink and a breath, that she saw him. Across the street, near the edge of the crowd, lay a boy. A boy no more than 12, white, thin as a branch, dressed in clothes that didn't fit right. His t-shirt was torn, jeans soaked and streaked with grime, and his shoes, if you could call them that, looked like they had been dug out of a trash bin. He was lying halfway on the curb, half in the street, one arm sprawled outward like he'd collapsed mid-step. At first no one noticed. Then a woman pushing a stroller slowed, furrowed her brow, and walked right past. A man in cargo shorts paused, glanced at the boy, muttered something under his breath, and shook his head. Probably a trick, someone said nearby. They fake it, you know, to get sympathy. The boy didn't move. His lips were cracked, his chest rising in shallow, uneven breaths. His eyes, barely open, drifted like he was halfway between this world and somewhere darker. Tiana stood frozen. Her hand gripped a sweating cup. Her mind screamed, "Don't," but her feet were already moving. 2 steps, 4. Her manager's voice barked behind her, but it was muffled now, far away. She crossed the boundary of the booth, crossed a different line, really, and walked toward the boy everyone else had chosen to ignore. She knelt beside him, her shadow stretching long across the pavement. Up close he looked even worse, his face pale beneath a film of dirt, cheeks sunken, lips trembling. His body was hot to the touch, but he shivered like it was the middle of winter. He didn't speak, didn't flinch, didn't even look at her. "Hey, hey, can you hear me?" Tian asked softly, brushing a matted clump of blonde hair from his forehead. No answer. Around them the world kept spinning, laughter, music, the hum of generators, but here, on the edge of the summer's joy, was a silence thick enough to choke on. People were watching now, some pausing, whispering, eyes narrowed with suspicion or discomfort. No one came closer. Tiana looked up, heart racing. A man in a polo shirt gave her a skeptical glance, raised a brow, and moved on. 2 teenagers with corn dogs stopped, snapped a photo, and laughed, but no one, not one person, offered help. She swallowed hard. "Okay," she whispered to the boy, voice trembling now. "You're coming with me." With a strength born of instinct, she slipped her arms under his shoulders and lifted. He was lighter than she expected, scarily light, like a child who hadn't eaten in days. He sagged against her, half-conscious, his breath brushing her collarbone in shallow, rapid bursts. It took everything she had to get him back across the street without collapsing. Behind the booth, her manager was already red-faced and storming forward. "What the hell are you doing, Tiana?" he barked, hands raised in disbelief. "You walk off in the middle of a rush? You got orders backing up, customers waiting." "He needs help," she snapped, louder than she meant to. "He's not okay." "Not our problem," he hissed, glancing at the boy now slumped against the cooler, his chest heaving. "You think every stray kid is your charity case? For all you know, he's high or, hell, pulling a scam." Tiana didn't respond. She grabbed a water bottle from the ice bin, twisted the cap, and knelt. "Drink," she said gently, tilting it toward the boy's lips. He blinked, slow, sluggish, and finally, after what felt like forever, swallowed. A little at first, then more. She opened a pack of crackers from under the counter, held one out. He stared at it like he'd forgotten what food looked like, then his hand, thin, shaking, reached up and took it. Still not a word. He didn't cry, didn't ask for help. He just existed there, broken and silent, like a ghost who had wandered too far from where he belonged. Tiana stayed close, ignoring the manager's cursing in the background, the judgmental stares from passers-by. She didn't know who this boy was, where he came from, or what he was running from. But she knew one thing: no one else had stopped. And that meant she couldn't walk away now. Not even when the shadows began to stretch longer across the pavement. Not even when the real danger came walking into the crowd. The breeze shifted, just enough to bring with it a feeling Tiana couldn't quite name, but it stiffened her spine. She looked up from the boy, whose eyes had started to focus, his breathing steadier, though his face was still hollow with fear. Then she saw them. 2 men. They moved against the flow of the crowd like rocks splitting a stream. Deliberate, slow, and wrong. One was tall and broad, with a shaved head and a black hoodie pulled low over his brow. The other wore a flannel shirt despite the heat, sleeves rolled just enough to reveal the ink curling up his arms. Neither smiled, neither spoke. But their eyes, those cold, flat eyes, locked onto the boy like they'd found what they'd lost. And the boy saw them too. His body went rigid, his hand clutched the hem of Tiana's apron, his breath caught in his throat, and in the smallest voice, no louder than a breath, he whispered, "Don't let them take me." It was the first thing he'd said, and it was enough. The 2 men stopped just feet away. One gave a smile that didn't reach his eyes. They didn't rush, didn't speak, just kept coming. The taller man's eyes skimmed the crowd, but never strayed from the boy. Cold. Flat. The kind of stare that didn't see people, only property. The one in flannel scratched absently at his jaw, fingers twitching like he had too much adrenaline and nowhere to spend it. Tiana felt it deep in her gut. That wrongness, like the air itself, recoiled around them. The boy's grip on her apron tightened. And then they spoke. "Hey there," he said, too casually. "Sorry to bother you, ma'am. That boy there's our nephew. He wandered off a few hours ago. We've been looking everywhere." Tiana stood slowly, placed herself between them and the boy. The man in flannel gestured. "Appreciate you helping him out. We'll take it from here." She didn't move. "What's his name?" she asked. The smile faltered. "Huh?" "Your nephew," she said louder. "What's his name?" The taller man stepped forward, voice turning hard. "Look, lady, this ain't your business. Just hand him over." People around them were still walking past. Too many faces, too much noise. No one was looking closely enough to see what was happening. The boy buried his face into her side, shaking. Tiana's pulse pounded in her ears. Her hand found the nearest object, a full cup of lemonade, and before she could think twice, she hurled it hard. It struck the flannel man square in the chest, splashing cold liquid across his shirt. "What the hell?" She stepped back, arms wide, blocking the boy. "Get away from him!" she screamed, loud and sharp, the kind of sound cracked through carnival music and laughter like thunder. He doesn't belong to you. People turned, heads whipped around, phones rose like antennas. The two men froze, just for a moment, then backed off, blending into the crowd with practiced ease. No threats, no chase, just the stench of something unfinished hanging in the air behind them. Tiana was shaking. The boy still clung to her, and her manager was storming over, face flushed and furious. "What in God's name are you doing?" he shouted. "You're throwing drinks at customers now? Making scenes? Are you out of your mind?" "They weren't customers," Tiana said, chest heaving. "They were trying to—" "I don't care," he roared, jabbing a finger at her. "I told you to stay at the stand. I told you not to bring that kid here. Now you've scared people off, embarrassed the brand, and made a damned spectacle. You're done. Get out. Now." Tiana blinked. For a moment it felt like the ground shifted beneath her. "I said go." She turned, biting her lips so hard she tasted blood, grabbed her backpack, reached for the boy's hand. He followed without question. No one clapped. No one came to her defense. She didn't look back. And the boy still hadn't spoken another word. Not yet. They walked in silence, away from the crowd, away from the laughter and music that no longer belonged to either of them. Tiana's shoes scraped against the pavement, her hands trembling at her sides. Her job was gone, her face flushed with adrenaline and humiliation. The boy clung close, never more than a step behind, his thin frame casting a shadow just barely darker than hers. She didn't know where she was going, just that she had to get away from the booth, from her manager's shouts, from those men and their empty eyes. Somewhere quiet, somewhere safe. The edge of the festival led to a quiet strip near the community church, where the crowd thinned and the music faded behind vendor tents. Tiana stopped near a bench under an old oak tree, the branches swaying gently above like they were whispering things the world had forgotten. She sat down heavily, rubbed her forehead, and tried to breathe. The boy stood beside her, silent as ever, but no longer shaking. His eyes were clearer now, still wary, still tired, but something inside him had settled. She looked up at him. "I don't know who you are," she said quietly. "But they were looking for you, and you were scared, so I believed you. I hope to God I was right." He stared at her for a moment, then slowly reached into the pocket of his ragged jeans and pulled out a crumpled, sweat-stained slip of paper. It was almost unreadable, ink-smudged, torn at the edges, but Tiana made out a string of numbers. A phone number, handwritten in a shaky, childlike scrawl. He held it out. Tiana took it, frowning. "You want me to call this?" He didn't speak, just nodded once. She pulled out her phone, unlocked it, and hesitated. "Is this your family?" Another nod. Her thumb hovered, then pressed call. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a click. A woman's voice answered, sharp with exhaustion and panic. "Hello?" Tiana cleared her throat. "Hi, this might sound strange. I'm here with a boy. Blonde hair, maybe 12? Looks like he's been through hell. He gave me this number." There was silence, then a sound, like something falling to the floor. A voice choked with disbelief. "Oh my God! Oh my God! That's my son! That's Chase! Where is he? Where are you?" Tiana's breath caught in her chest. She looked at the boy. Chase, and for the first time he lifted his chin and met her eyes, not with fear, but with something deeper. Relief. "We're near the back gate of the summer jubilee. Near the church." "Stay right there," the woman ordered. "Please. Don't let him go. We're coming right now." The call ended. Tiana lowered the phone, still processing. "You're not homeless," she said softly. Chase didn't answer, but he didn't have to. The torn clothes, the dirt, the silence. It all made sense now. He hadn't been begging. He'd been surviving. Hiding. Tiana looked down at her hands, then back at him. "You ran from them," she murmured. "From those men." He nodded. "And now your family's coming." He nodded again, and then, only then, his voice returned, a whisper, hoarse and small, like it hadn't been used in days. "Thank you." Tiana didn't speak. She just nodded, lips pressed tight, heart pounding, not from fear anymore, but from the knowledge that whatever this was, it wasn't over yet. Not until they saw who was coming. They didn't have to wait long. Less than 10 minutes passed before the rumble of engines cut through the quiet. Not festival noise. This was something heavier, cleaner, more precise. Tiana turned her head just as a line of black SUVs rolled to a stop along the curb, their tinted windows gleaming beneath the midday sun. Doors opened almost in unison and men in suits stepped out, their movements fast, clipped, scanning the area with practiced eyes. They weren't police. They weren't security guards from the festival. These were private men, expensive men, with earpieces, sharp shoes, and that tightly coiled presence of people trained to act before anyone else could. One of them spoke into his wrist mic. Another pointed toward the bench where Tiana and Chase sat. Then, the last door opened. She stepped out slowly, as if gravity itself recognized the weight of her presence. A woman in her early 40s, dressed in a cream silk blouse, dark slacks that looked hand-tailored, and heels that didn't belong anywhere near city pavement. Her sunglasses came off in a swift motion, revealing eyes that were already filling with tears. She didn't run, she walked, every step deliberate, heels clicking on concrete like a countdown, but her composure crumbled the moment she saw him. "Chase," she whispered, voice cracking. The boy stood. For the first time he moved on his own, no hesitation, no fear, and when she reached him they collapsed into each other like two pieces of a broken world finally locking back into place. She dropped to her knees, holding him like she might lose him again if she blinked. His arms wrapped tight around her neck, and neither of them said anything for a long time. Just breath, just shaking, just the sound of a mother who had survived 2 days of hell and finally found the reason to believe in mercy again. Tiana stood off to the side, watching, stunned into stillness. Tiana stood there, her hands clenched at her sides as Chase melted into his mother's arms. His small frame trembled against her, and she clung to him like something sacred returned. One of the suited men discreetly handed her a water bottle and a soft towel. She ignored both. Tiana stayed quiet, unsure if she should walk away, if she'd done too much or not enough. Her throat burned with questions, but they caught on her tongue. She didn't belong in this world of polished shoes and armored vehicles, not really. She was just the girl who stopped, and that was supposed to be the end of it. But Chase looked back at her. Still holding his mother's hand, he turned, stepped forward, and for the first time since they'd met, he spoke without fear in his voice. "I ran away," he said, hoarse but steady. Tiana blinked. "From what?" He glanced up at his mother, who nodded gently, her hand tightening on his shoulder. "We were on a family trip. Out near the hills, there's a cabin we stay at sometimes. I got bored, snuck out with my fishing rod, wanted to catch something by myself. I didn't go far, but someone was watching." His eyes dropped to the pavement. "They grabbed me near the creek, put something over my face. I don't remember much after that, just waking up in a shack in the woods, no windows, just a door with a bolt on the outside. I think it was near here. I could hear music sometimes, distant. I thought I was dreaming." Tiana's chest tightened. "This morning they left the door open. One of them forgot to lock it. I waited until I couldn't hear anyone outside, and I ran. I didn't even know where I was going, just ran toward the noise, toward people." He paused and looked up at her again. "Then I saw you, and I thought maybe someone would help." Tiana's hands trembled. Vivian Calder stepped closer. "We had no idea where he was," she said quietly. "The police, the dogs, the drones, they searched all night, but he slipped through their fingers." "And you found him, miss?" Tiana Brooks." Vivian studied her for a long moment, not with pity but with curiosity. There was a tired kind of strength in the young woman before her, not polished, not privileged, just present when it mattered most. "Will you come with us?" Vivian asked gently. "Just for a moment. I'd like to speak with you properly." Tiana hesitated, then nodded. They drove her a few blocks in one of the black SUVs, past the festival gates, into a quiet corner lot behind a boutique hotel. No crowds, no cameras. Inside a private suite with warm lighting and soft chairs, Vivian asked Tiana to sit. Chase stayed beside her, curled into a blanket now, already nodding off. Over a glass of lemonade, Vivian listened, really listened, as Tiana told her about her life. Her mother, her school, the job she just lost, her dreams, folded into old catalogs and scribbled notebooks. She didn't exaggerate, didn't ask for anything. She just answered. And when it was over, Vivian only said one thing. Go home, rest. I know you've lost something today, but let's see what tomorrow brings. The morning came soft and golden, pressing through the blinds of the small apartment Tiana shared with her mother. The sounds of the city had not changed, the occasional siren in the distance, a neighbor's dog barking, the clink of someone's coffee mug against porcelain. But something in Tiana's world had. Quietly, irrevocably. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her old sneakers. The job was gone, again. Another closed door. She'd done the right thing, she knew that, but right didn't pay rent. And still, she didn't regret a second of it. A knock at the door made her flinch. Her mother called from the kitchen. Tiana, someone's at the door for you. She opened it, barefoot on the tile, and froze. Standing there was a man in a charcoal gray suit, one she recognized from the night before. He didn't speak much, just handed her an envelope with her name written in elegant script, and behind him at the curb sat the same black SUV, its engine humming like it had never really left. Tiana opened the envelope with cautious fingers. Inside, 3 things. First, a personal note, written in blue ink on crisp stationery. Tiana, you stood when no one else did, you listened, you believed, and because of that, my son is home. We had a long night as a family, and you were part of that conversation. I hope this helps you take your next steps, not because you need saving, but because you deserve to soar. Vivian Calder. Second, a printed offer of full academic scholarship to Briarfield University, including housing and living stipend. The same university whose catalog Tiana had once dog-eared over and over until the edges curled and the pages thinned. Third, an official offer letter for a paid summer internship at Calder Equity Group starting in 3 weeks, a real role, a real desk, a real beginning. And beneath it all, tucked almost as an afterthought, a check, more than enough to cover her mother's debts, next semester's tuition if she declined the scholarship, and a few moments of breathing room in a life that had never really paused. Tiana didn't cry, not then. She simply stood still in the morning light, her breath catching on something too big to name. She stepped outside, looked at the city she thought she knew, and realized, for the first time, someone had seen her. Not as a worker behind a booth, not as a girl scraping by, but as a person who mattered, a person who made a choice when it counted. Downstairs, she passed the man in the suit. Tell her thank you, Tiana said. He nodded. She says it every hour, you just don't hear it. Tiana looked down at the letter in her hand, then out toward the skyline, glowing like a promise. She had no idea what tomorrow would look like, but she was no longer afraid to find out. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.